Now, one major health issue that affects gender is the issue of gender-based violence, and this affects both men and women. Now, the UN defines gender-based violence as violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in the public or the private life. Now, while gender-based violence affects women disproportionately to men, there are also groups of men who are victims of violence at the hands of other men and also women as well. Example, homosexuals who face violence at the hands of other persons in our society. Some of the effects of gender-based violence are depression, poor nutrition, suicide gestures or attempts, substance abuse, unwanted sex under pregnancy, chronic illnesses or exacerbation of those illnesses, partial or permanent disabilities, and also sexually transmitted diseases or infections such as HIV. Now, women are more easily influenced by HIV, not just because of the existence of gender-based violence, but also because of their biological makeup. Because of the large mucosal structure of the vagina, high concentration of virus in semen, which can remain in a woman's body for several hours, even after sexual activity as well. And also viral loads. Women often do not experience symptoms of STI, which remains untreated, making the body even more susceptible, vulnerable to HIV and AIDS. And also the presence of untreated STI can produce other health complications. These approaches sometimes reinforce the stereotypes and poor dynamics that may lead to the very behavior that facilitates the spread of HIV. So, for example, men are more macho and they enjoy sex and control over sexual activity. Women are considered to be weak and they lack personal agency over their bodies, and they're subjected to the machoism of men. So, in some relationships, women do not have a choice as to when to have sex and how to have sex, whether to protect themselves or not, because of the dependence on resources from their partner. Also, only some sexualities have social currency and are considered legitimate. Now, what do we mean by currency? When you think about currency, you think about money, and money equals value. So there are some sexualities in our society, the Caribbean, that are only considered to have value over others. So heterosexuality, for example, is seen as that sexuality that has social currency, while homosexuality is not seen as having legitimacy. Also, sexuality is controlled by the state. We mentioned earlier about normative ethics, where the state regulates right and wrong conduct. Now, we mentioned earlier that men are macho and they have less than control over sex. No, this is a known fact. And because of this, we see advertisements like this one, for example, where men are encouraged to take more child and responsibility over sexual activity. Because it is recognized now. Look at the issue of HIV as a health issue that affects gender, science and technology. There are several things that needs to be considered. One, the power and sexual relations that exist between men and women. Also, economic behavior. Now, HIV becomes an issue of unequal power, where one partner, to the detriment of the other, in a sexual relationship is allocated agency and decision-making power. So, for example, to have sex or not, and also how to have sex. And control over the resources that affects these decisions. So, in a relationship, who normally buys the condom? We'll look at sexual practices. Now, the issue of prostitution and human trafficking is a gender issue that affects our HIV and AIDS rates in the Caribbean. Transactional sex, and this is your sugar daddy, sugar baby relationship. The sex tourism as well. The Caribbean is a destination for not just sea, sand and sun, but also sea, sun and sex. And casual sex as well, such as those which occur at a lot of those all weekend parties. Also, after attending a party or a club, oftentimes due to the influence of alcohol. Violence against women, again, is a gender issue which affects health. So the control of sexual and reproductive rights. Again, we mentioned the issue of abortion. Who has control over those rights? We spoke about our normative ethics, which speaks to the state having control over the sexual and reproductive rights. Sexual abuse and incest is a health issue that affects women because in instances of sexual abuse, rape, and incest, a condom is not used, women are exposed or even greater exposed to HIV and AIDS and other sexual transmitted diseases and infections. Also, images of sex and sexuality in the media or the internet, such as pornography, child pornography as well. Also, one of the manifestations of the power or the influence that men have when it comes down to sexual activity is the concept of masculinity. In the Caribbean context, what is masculinity? How do men prove that they are in fact a man? Now, men's predisposition to engaging in violent behavior further exposes them to HIV. having multiple sexual partners, particularly in Jamaica. We know the enough gal and gal in a bongo mentality is also an aspect of masculinity in the Caribbean that affects HIV and AIDS. Also risky sexual behavior, homophobia, living on the down low in the closet. We see where homosexuality as an applied ethics issue puts men at risk, men and women at risk, because men are not in a society where they are comfortable to express their true sexuality. So men live on the down low. Some men rather live on the down low or in the closet, if you would call it. They engage in what seem to be heterosexual relationships. They have wives, they have children, while living a double life, further exposing themselves and their partners. Also, denial of HIV status, which is seen as a threat to manhood. I did mention earlier that men tend to suffer prolonged illnesses in comparison to women because they're less likely to seek medical attention, and also men are less likely to adhere to their medical treatments. Now, HIV and AIDS becomes an issue of cultural practices, fully accepted and often times tacitly condoned behavior that puts men and women at risk, or practitioners at risk of being infected with or by the disease. So these practices oftentimes go unnoticed or unquestioned and are usually taken as normative. We did mention earlier that as individuals in our society, we internalize gender meanings, which then becomes normal and natural to us, but these also results in stereotypes. Now, these are usually manifested in several ways. So, issues such as rites of passage, for example. In some cultures, you have rites of passage ceremonies. In Jamaica, we might not have such an issue, but what we do have in our Jamaican context is early initiation into sexual activity for some of our young men and women, and this is as a result of inadequate and erroneous information, especially among boys. So young people tend to engage in early sexual activity, with the age of consent being 16. The age of sexual initiation is much younger. For boys and girls, is anywhere around 12, 13 years old. In some cultures, there are also practices which deny girls personal agency over their bodies, such as genital mutilation, lack of age-appropriate sex education, again, which also influences early initiation into sexual activity. So, information from which young people can make informed and healthy decisions. Also, sexual myths, which still exist in some societies. So, having sex with a virgin can cure HIV, for example. That's one of the myths that still exists. And also, popular culture, particularly in songs, which speaks about sexual prowess, and in particularly Jamaica, what it means to be a man, and the issue of machoism and masculinity. In some cultures, arranged marriages also affects how vulnerable some females are. We might not have the issue of arranged marriages as a gender issue that affects health in Jamaica.